We're going to read some news. We're going to talk about it. I'm trying to understand Kamala's economic policies. I already went through some of them. One's in chat if you have looked into Kamala's policies a little bit. The ones that were just unveiled. Zero's in chat if you have not looked into them at all. Two's in chat if you've just heard a little bit. I wanted to know what are their promises. This is what's important to me because I feel like they picked walls and like, yeah, good vibes pick. I get it. But I really want to know what you're going to be claiming to do for the working class and lower classes. Okay, well, good. Then you'll be new to this too. So I think the thing I'm most excited about, and I think the thing I am most excited for so far is them wanting to go after the price gouging. The other thing I noticed that's been kind of fun, a little bit spicy, is I feel like they're racing each other a little bit on the child tax credits. I forget what Kamala was offering at first, but she was offering some child tax credit per year tax credits for families. And I was like, God damn, because that's like a lot higher than I think they were offering like 3,600. They were trying to, what was the COVID levels? Does anyone remember that? I don't have kids, so this isn't something I follow a lot, but I also think that it's really important. I don't want to see anyone in chat, anyone in my life be forced into having a kid that they are not economically comfortable having. I don't want to see them going through pregnancies that they are not prepared for and ending up with a kiddo that they can't afford, and the stress and the horror that that brings into someone's life. It is a massive economic tool. And so I'm really glad to see them kind of almost racing each other, because it was like, okay, it seemed like Kamala was going for the 3,600 during COVID with child tax credits that lifted a bunch of kids out of poverty. I think it was like historic numbers, wasn't it? I was like, okay, wow, maybe we'll see something good with that. I'd love that for our future generations. Like, bringing kids into more stable situations is just good. And then Vance was like, I want $5,000 per year for the kids. And I was like, hell yeah. I mean, I hate Vance, right? He also wants to outlaw abortion. I strongly disagree with forcing people through situations they're not ready for. I just strongly disagree with that. But Kamala released, so she's wanting 6,000, but just for the first year. So it's like, okay, first year newborns, you get $6,000. And then after that, I think she's reverting to the 3,600. So I'm like, oof. But I think one of the nice things is, what do you think on them talking about? All right, we're getting into the topic. Kamala Harris unveils populist policy agenda with $6,000 credit for newborns. The vice president endorses government action on housing, groceries, medical debt, drugs, and other issues. So my understanding is she's wanting to reduce some of the medical debt or get rid of medical debt for people, find ways to do that. It's hard for me to be excited about that when like the one big thing I wanted from Biden was student debt relief, and we didn't get it. And I understand that politicians can't deliver on everything, and it seems like he tried, but it's hard to be excited with that in mind. Like, what's gonna be different there? And he literally promised it, did he? It seemed like he was pushing it really hard. I was very hopeful. If she ran on universal health care, I would consider voting for her. Apparently in the primaries when she was running for president, she ran on single payer health care. Do you know what I'm talking about? Now, my question is, what's the difference between those two? It kept getting blocked. The student debt relief, yeah, I followed it because I was really excited for it. And I don't feel like I can say that he didn't actually try, because it seems like he was. Yeah, exactly, fish stand. She was like trying to do that. And even the article was like, she was trying to stand out in a crowd and kind of pandering to further left people. And then she walked that back super fast. So I don't expect that. Like, everyone did that during the primary, to be honest. Last time, yes, she dropped out before any primary. You think she's a coward? Yeah, she and Biden had a few moments together on the debates. Really? Damn. Kamala's dad is an actual leftist and has disowned because of her record as an AG. Damn. Damn. That's brutal. I'll have to look into that. All right, let's see what they're claiming. Not wrong. Look it up. No, I believe you. I wrote a little note. Look up Kamala's dad. Yeah, I think Kamala's dad is an economist who's a Marxist. Damn, can we get her dad in here? Can we tag him in? I mean, he can't be that old, right? Sorry, Kamala. We want Dadmala, okay? We're tagging your dad in. All right, let's see what she's claiming. Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday unveiled an aggressively populist economic agenda to an enthusiastic but intimate crowd, providing the most detailed vision yet of her governing priorities since becoming the Democratic Party's presidential nominee. In a pivot from the raucous rallies that have so far defined Harris's month-old campaign, the vice president instead opted for a smaller setting of about 250 supporters that allowed her to explain a number of economic policies aimed at lowering costs for American families. Together we will build what I call an opportunity economy, Harris said. Everyone, regardless of who they are and where they start, has an opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their children. So I've seen some people already trying to claim she's communist and associate her with communism or socialism. In that sense alone, everyone, regardless of who they are and or where they start, has an opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their children. That just seems capitalist. Straight capitalist. I feel like you misunderstand the goals of communism if you don't know that inheritance and passing on inheritance to your family and keeping the wealth in the family, that is not communist or socialist. Making sure you build a society, a functioning society that takes care of everyone for the future generations and making that society the best you can, rather than trying to keep it within your family unit. You want to build a good society for everyone, not just protect your kids from the harsh world via getting them as much money as possible. And I think that's really, really tough for people to grasp as a concept because it's not the world they've lived in. And so I hear you say they said that all about Biden as well, LOL. It's a lack of
I really get off on that whole fire trick. I love
you just
editing.
interrupted
so cool.
my
Someone edit me
communist
doing a fire trick,
conversation.
man, I'm so
lucid, because you're not going to tell me that Kamala is communist while she's saying stuff like everyone, regardless of who they are and where they start, has an opportunity to build wealth for themselves and their children. Listen. Communists don't just want it for their children and their children alone. We want a better society for everyone. We want to build a society with the future generations in mind. Kamalanism. One's in chat if you were for the Kamalanism. You're there. You're on it. Who's in chat? If you're like, please, just a crumb of socialism. What I would do for a crumb of socialism. Just a little. Please. Oh, I just want healthcare. I am there with you. I am there with you. 100%. I'll take a crumb of a crumb by now. No, so sad. Communists want, communism, not Keynesian capitalism. All right, you fucking nerd. You fucking nerd. Explain what that means. What does that mean? Keynesian? What? Oh no. Oh no. Keynesian, pronounced like Keynesian. Economics is just the social safety nets to preserve capitalism. Gotcha. So I guess I kind of support Keynesian economics or capitalism in the interim, because I want to see people well off and not just in the depths of poverty, because I believe that if people are better off, they are more likely to be in a position where they can make more demands and organize better. That's where I've been at on it though. If I can get safety nets for y'all, I am not gonna lie, I'm gonna fucking do it. I want to see that. How do I say it again? Keynesian? Spend your way out of recession. It's the nicer capitalism. Gotcha. Named after this guy? Oh no, his middle name is Maynard. What? I didn't know that was a name. I thought that was just how my uncles tease me. No, I only got called a nerd in May. John Maynard Keynes was an English economist and philosopher whose idea fundamentally changed the theory and practice of macroeconomics and the economic policies of governments. Originally trained in mathematics, he built on and greatly refined earlier work on the causes of business cycles. Is business cycles just like the cycle of like doing well and then recession? Keynes? It looks like Keynes. It says Keynes. Boom, bust. And bust is recession, no? Let's get back into it. Some of the economic policies which Harris's campaign had announced earlier on Friday went beyond what President Joe Biden had promised. While Harris is building on much of Biden's economic agenda, she is also seeking to roll out policies that are unique to her as she works to define herself to millions of voters who may not have a firm grasp of where she stands on a number of key issues. Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency because I strongly believe when the middle class is strong, America is strong, Harris said. So in the weeks to come, I will address in greater detail my plans to build an opportunity economy. The most striking proposals were the elimination of medical debt for millions of Americans, the first ever ban on price gouging for groceries and food, a cap on prescription drug costs, a $25,000 subsidy for first-time home buyers, and a child tax credit that would provide $6,000 per child to families for the first year of a baby's life. So the things I'm most excited for, I want more details on trying to ban the price gouging because I think that's huge, especially on groceries and food. I'd say in general, because you have these CEOs that are making such a large percentage and have been making larger and larger percentages while other people are struggling, because when they have a larger percentage, everyone has less. And I think that's the key thing, a huge thing to be aware of. Like, where is this money going? Why are people struggling? Okay, we have this price gouging, and then they blame it on inflation when it's like, okay, then why are you having really good profits? What's going on there? So I'm excited about that. A cap on prescription drug costs, that's just good. That just seems good, period. $25,000 subsidy for first-time home buyers. I agree with what Bound was saying earlier. The concern here is being we need to make sure that we have the supply we need before we are incentivizing people to go out and buy more, because we don't want those prices to be shooting up even more. The child tax credit for providing $6,000 per child to families for the first year of a baby's life. One's in chat if you're a parent, two's in chat if you want to be a parent. Zeros in chat if you have no kids. You are not a parent. How do you feel on this? The 600. So what she's saying is 6,000 for the first year. Then I believe it was 36 or oh no. I think she was saying 3,600, but I could be wrong. Okay, I was wrong. It's 3,000 here. The last item followed a suggestion earlier this month from Senator J.D. Vance, Ohio, the GOP vice president nominee, that the credit be raised from $2,000 per child to $5,000. Harris is also calling for restoring the Biden administration's child tax credit that expired at the end of 2021. Which raised the benefit for most families from $2,000 per child to $3,000 per child. Which that seems good. I believe they're aiming to keep that throughout. Do you like that front loaded bit, or you're cool with the credit? Oh, I feel like the credit is just good. I'm torn on the $6K for the first year. Why do you feel that way? As someone who doesn't want kids, I support this. It could do so much to help so many people. Oh, absolutely. I don't think you have to have kids to support the child tax credit. You just have to understand that that's our future generation. I don't want to see anyone in poverty, but especially kiddos struggling with food. Like, that's just so bad. That feels like such an easy thing to support, kids not being in poverty. I really do think you're just a monster if you don't support that, whether or not you have kids. But maybe that's a little communist of me or something. I don't want our future generations to be malnourished. Oh, how freaking communist of me, right? One person's socialism is someone else's neighborliness, I suppose. From my experience, kids get more expensive the older they get. So while it's nice to pay for baby stuff, it seems like not enough and a push to have more kids versus carrying. That's what I was wondering. I'm like, it's like, oh, you had a new baby. Here's a bunch of money. And then it like drastically, you're going to cut it by half. I think I like Vance's policy on this more. I'm also glad he's making it because in that his is a little more expensive. Because then I'm like, okay, are you really going to complain about the cost of this? Are you really going to do it when you want to do something more? My 17-year-old is significantly cheaper than an infant. Parents, where do you weigh in on this? I'm thinking once you get into school, is the cost of school a lot? But then you've got childcare for the young ones too. So I don't know. I'd have to look at how that typically goes for people. I think there's a lot of variables. When I was 16, 17, my dad was busting his ass so I could have violin lessons. And does that compare to the price of diapers? I don't know. Could go either way. School can be very expensive if the kid is participating in a lot of things. Yeah, I remember my parents being like, oh my God, show choir is so expensive. Daycare cost averages around $20K a year. There's so many factors too. If your 17-year-old plays 2 sports in a couple clubs, plays an instrument. Yeah, exactly. Like, what are we? Violin lessons. I wish I had violence lessons. I tell you what, I'm torn. I have a trainer at the gym and our first session is going to be this Wednesday. Chat, I'm so fucking excited. I'm so excited. And I'm still kind of like, man, maybe after this, if I don't want to continue, like if I feel like I've got my form down and stuff, I should get into like jiu-jitsu or something. What if you need to give your child a small loan of $1 million? Oh my God, listen. I do. I want to really make sure that kids have access to things like playing instruments, being in clubs. Hi, editing Lumi here, and I wanted to start with thank you for everyone who came out and had this conversation. I really appreciate you giving your input. My position has shifted a little bit on this in that I know Kamala has given her reasoning for that first year of $6,000. The mindset being that people's incomes fall in that first year, particularly if they take time off of work for the kiddos, that maternity leave. I think that's pretty solid. I would strongly prefer that companies support paternal leave for both parents for the same amount of time. That also does well for gender equity within the workforce, but primarily, I'd say it supports families. When you have a new baby, it'd be good to have both parents there to support that newborn coming into the world. So while I would prefer the government make sure that companies are doing well and supporting families themselves rather than making the government take up the slack there, and make sure that we have parental leave for both parents that's paid, because any decent job should do so. If you're a company worth your salt, you would take care of your employees and make sure their families are cared for. With that being said, the government's picking up the slack that the companies do not take to there, unfortunately. And I think her reasoning for that being in the first year is pretty decent with that in mind. So while I agree with her on the 6,000, I have to say I also appreciate her just trying to full force bring back the child tax credit from the American Rescue Plan that happened in COVID. I want to acknowledge what happened recently. Just on August 1st, we had a bipartisan bill fail in the Senate. So the Democrats have been talking about this child tax credit vote that also, as NBC said, would provide some tax breaks for businesses. Democrats have been pushing this a little bit, talking about the bipartisan bill that failed in the Senate. And I think there could be several reasons that it failed, but one of them being that Republicans simply would not back it in the Senate. So NBC was reporting on this. They said Senate Republicans blocked a bipartisan bill Thursday to expand the child tax credit and provide some tax breaks for benefits, all but sinking it for the rest of the year. So keep this in mind. The news media is saying provide some tax breaks for businesses. I've heard this occasionally mentioned, but mainly Democrats have been messaging around the child tax credit. My assumption is that's because that's their part of the bill, whereas the Republicans took up the more tax cuts for businesses side of it. The vote was 48-44, with the vast majority of GOP senators voting against it. Democrats voted in favor with the exception of 2 independents who caucus with Democrats, Senators Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin, and just 3 Republicans voted for it, Senators Josh Hawley, Rick Scott, and Mark Wayne Mullen. Bernie Sanders has been one of the key voices in pushing the left to genuinely talk about the working class. I'd say that some of Kamala's policies come out of his argument that she should be speaking more to the working class. So I wanted to look into why he wouldn't vote for this bill, because that's surprising. What he said, he put a statement out the day that it was shot down, saying, "I strongly support restoring the expanded child tax credit from the American Rescue Plan that reduced childhood poverty in America by over 40%. I cannot in good conscience, however, vote for the tax package that is being voted upon today. At a time of massive wealth and income inequality, we should not be giving tens of billions of dollars in tax breaks to some of the largest and most profitable corporations in America. Incredibly, this legislation would hand out a $2 billion retroactive tax break, each to Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, some of the most profitable defense contractors in the world. Further, at a time when artificial intelligence and automation threatens to displace millions of American workers, this legislation could provide billions of dollars in tax breaks to companies like Amazon, Google, Verizon, and Facebook to replace workers with machines or robots." 3 years ago, as a part of the American Rescue Plan, Congress passed an expanded child tax credit that put $300 a month per child directly into the bank accounts of tens of millions of families. This provision alone lifted nearly 4 million children out of poverty. The tax bill on the floor today is only 1/10 the size of the child tax credit in the American Rescue Plan and would only last for 3 years. When all is said is done, this bill would provide at least $3 in corporate tax breaks for every $1 in tax cuts for working families with children. This is not a good deal. So Bernie Sanders is, of course, looking out for the everyday working American and saying this is another tax plan that's going to screw over working class Americans while giving corporate tax cuts to the rich. While I personally really do want Democrats to support the working class, this isn't how I want to see them do it. While the Democratic Party is waving this in front of J.D. Vance as a way to tease him for not genuinely caring about the tax credit, which I completely agree with them on that, I also see them being willing to price gouge Americans. Taxes are important if we want to pay for government programs. And here they are willing to give huge tax cuts to billionaires while only giving a third of that to working class families and acting like this is caring primarily for families. That's concerning. Worse than that is the Republicans that would stand for those corporate tax cuts. So frankly, if Vance would have showed up and participated in the conversation saying, I don't want to vote yes on this because I disagree with the corporate tax cuts, that would be awesome. I would be very, very impressed. But I have to side with the Democrats here and say he didn't even show up for the conversation. He was too busy over at the border to come and even vote. And I tried to find a statement by him on it, and he hasn't made one, even though there's been pretty big criticism on him for not talking about it. If this issue is so important to you that you're willing to push out a policy of $5,000 a year and then say, well, if Congress will pass it, because that is the reality here. Both parties will be up against Congress and having to navigate getting that through Congress. I don't buy that he's taking it very seriously if he's not already there having those conversations with his colleague. How can we expect him to get anything done there? So while I would like to see good tax cuts for families, low-income families, working-class families in particular, I don't think we should mourn the death of this bill too much. I think it's okay, actually. Now, I do have to say that I do like Harris's proposals. I like the $6,000 right up front. I think that's solid for taking care of families that lose income while staying home caring for their children. I do think that we need to make sure that we are implementing some sort of policy to make paternal care a universal necessity for companies. They should be required to give parental leave for parents. I also like that she is just straight up bringing back the American Rescue Plan child tax credits. The $3,600 the first 5 years, $3,000 per year after that. That's just solid. That's really good. She is changing it in that it won't be paid out in checks monthly like we had during COVID. That makes sense to me. That's fine. I have a sneaking suspicion that Vance is not someone who would show up and vote no on this, though. To be fair, I don't know what he would vote. He could go either way on this for a variety of reasons. I doubt he is a Bernie Sanders, though. I doubt he dodged it because he didn't want to vote for the corporate tax cuts and he wanted the better child tax credits for families. I don't think he's close to Bernie Sanders in this sense. I think he's closer to Josh Hawley, who did vote for it for the child tax credits, like Vance might have, saying he cares so much about child tax credits. And I tried to see Hawley's statement on voting yes for this. I didn't find anything. What I did find is Josh Hawley's own introduction of a parent tax credit, which went beyond either Vance's or Kamala's. He was recommending $6,000 per child. However, with a catch, that's for single parents. If you're married, you get a 100% bonus on that. And he writes it directly in his proposal. This creates an explicit marriage bonus of 100%. So he is explicitly, and he says it himself, explicitly giving a bonus to people who are married because they are married. A double bonus, literally just for being married. And this is going to be based on ideas of the traditional family, which is the same idea J.D. Vance has. He wants this traditional family. He has said things like, even in these maybe violent marriages, people should stick it out for the sake of the children. So you see, whether it be with J.D. Vance pushing people into having children or wanting to push people into having children and incentivizing them by saying they should get more votes for each kid they have, or you have someone like Josh Hawley saying that just because you're married, you should get more money for having kids. This is what you get. You don't get genuine support of the working class, genuine support of families. You get conditional support based on you living out relationships how they want you to. But again, we can't see how Vance would have voted because he simply did not show up for the conversation. And if you're not willing to show up to do the work, I don't know that you really care about it. So stop trying to make it a part of your platform. It's truly embarrassing that the one thing that you went viral for, the childless cat lady's comment, you couldn't even turn around and do something good with. Kamala beat you to it. Kamala's going to do better on this one. And the thing is, she's going to do that with the support of her party. Now, I don't know if they're going to get this passed. I'm skeptical that they'd manage, but if someone was going to do it, it's going to be a Democrat. The Republicans would not back Vance on this unless he was giving even worse tax cuts to the rich, because clearly that's what the Republicans in Senate care about. And that is not what the American people need. We don't need more corporate tax cuts. Harris has thus far surrounded herself with many former aides to Biden, and her team had made some overtures to business leaders that they hope to reflect a more centrist approach. but the policy positions she embraced Friday suggest she will continue, if not deepen, the party's transformation under Biden, who pushed for more aggressive government intervention in the economy on industrial, labor, and antitrust policies. Does anyone know what it's referring to there? Biden pushed for more aggressive government intervention in the economy on industrial, labor, and antitrust policies. Did we see that? Where did you see that? What is a centrist approach? What I think they're talking about here is being a centrist between the working class and the corporations. Like, we're going to take care of everybody. We're not just siding with the workers. We also care about business leaders. And I imagine that's just because it's probably really hard to be in the, what is the term I'm looking for? Upper echelons, in the higher up sections of the government, and be against corporations. But I'm basing that on the idea that just the vast amounts of money that go into politics and getting reelected. I think that's unfortunately a huge problem. His labor department is pretty solid. Really? Biden's DOJ has pursued antitrust suits against Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. Okay, we gotta learn what this is really fast. What is antitrust? Yes! Oh my God, I like this. Antitrust refers to the regulation of the concentration of economic power, particularly in regard to monopolies and other anti-competitive practices. That is just good. That is just good. Pursued trust suits against Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. He instituted the biggest investment in green energy in the country's history, to name two. I'd like to hear more about that. I will keep that in mind. Harris immediately delved into her newly unveiled economic policies and spoke in personal detail about growing up in a middle-class household. One's in chat if you want to hear how they're dealing with making sure people aren't homeless, because this feels like it's completely ignoring the problem of a lot of people being homeless. Like, listen, don't get me wrong. I want to see some good policies for whatever you want to call the middle class. But also, we have massive problems with homelessness. And I'm sure you're not including homeless people in the middle class. Harris plans to build 3 million new homes. That's true. You know, that's actually fair. I really think you've got to go with a housing first approach. And my understanding is they're doing this as affordable housing. And so when I go out and I'm talking to people and they're saying, well, I got a job, but unfortunately my job is working a third shift and I can't sleep because the place that I can go to sleep is only open at night. And so I have to sleep in public, and then the police are harassing me. And so they're just struggling to hold down a job. That is awful. Is any campaign policy concrete? No, but I definitely think that we should be talking about what could be done better for sure. She also endorsed rent control. Did she? We didn't get there yet. There's also the problem of building homes as cheaply as possible, which leads to poor quality housing. Yeah, it's horrible. There's so many things I feel like people are blind to about how it would have to work for someone to pull themselves up. Yeah, I think people really misunderstand that. So don't get me wrong. I support more housing, and I support them trying to control, however they're trying to control housing prices. We need that. We need that. We absolutely need that. But also, I think I get a little worried when it's always just the middle class, the middle class, the middle class. And is that because of the voter base? Oh, we're trying to get these middle class people and we don't care about homeless people, because do homeless people get to vote? I mean, I know that you can, but I don't know what the stats are on people actually making it to the polls and voting when they're homeless, because I'm not going to act like my first thought when I'm homeless is going to be, when do I get to vote? You know, like, I feel like you've got other problems to deal with. Do you need an address to vote? Oh shit. You might actually not get to vote if you're homeless. That's a good question. Can you vote if you don't have an address? USA. Voters without an address. Voting while unhoused. You don't need a home to vote. You will need a form of ID. You will need a mailing address. Okay, so you can use like a nearby shelter even if you do not live there. A nearby religious center. General delivery if your local post office offers it. A P.O. box at a local post office where you live. The home address of a friend or a family member who lives nearby. So you can vote if you're homeless. think that's the general messaging because due to the weirdness of capitalism, most people consider themselves middle class. I think it's a psychological thing. Like if you're not homeless and not a billionaire, your brain goes, I must be middle, even if you're actually quite poor. That's fair. Yeah, voting is really difficult for the houseless because registration is tied to address in a lot of places to mark your district. I guess you just have to use that temporary or wherever your like temporary address is, the mailing address. Fucked up thing is that in some places IDs cost money to get, which can be a really difficult thing to get when you're houseless. Oh, undoubtedly. I think we assume poor is equivalent to homeless. So I'm specifically talking about homeless people because I'm recognizing that it's just a huge problem and it seems like a huge problem everywhere. And when I think about class issues and I hear them continuously saying the middle class, I'm like, okay, but what are you doing here? Because this is also a huge, huge problem. And it's like a moral failing in our country. This is a moral failing that we are going to sit here and tout that we are such a rich country and then we have a ton of people on the streets. Like that is wild to me. So am I saying that homeless people are poor and that's the same Venn diagram as a circle? No, I'm saying this is a huge problem. I think we as a society need to be more educated on the causes of homelessness and helping people get out of it. You run into some specific issues regarding, for certain populations, mental health assistance that needs to be there. You run into, Amy was covering this, like how homelessness can cause people to get really, really into drugs and how that impacts people. You need programs that help people the whole way with every aspect of that. I want to see a multifaceted approach. Yeah, Amy covers housing. She does really well. We should probably have another chat with her soon. But Lumi, we need to make sure that the people who are already richer can become even richer. No. Harris's policy positions have evolved and changed considerably from when she first sought the Democratic presidential nomination in 2019. At the time when she was trying to distinguish herself among a crowded field of contenders who often tacked to the left to win primary voters, she embraced a number of progressive policies that she has since rejected, including a single-payer healthcare system and banning fracking and offshore drilling. The challenge for Harris now is to maintain the energy and enthusiasm that have powered her run so far and dramatically upended the presidential contest against Trump, while simultaneously rolling out concrete policies to demonstrate her seriousness as a candidate that will be subject to scrutiny and criticism. During a press call hosted by the RNC and the Trump campaign, Kevin Hassett, former chairman to the Council of Economic Advisors in the Trump administration, called Harris's plan for price gouging completely preposterous. I feel like that's promising. I would love to see her go after price gouging. If she manages, listen. If Harris manages to go after price gouging, I'll concede that she is in on Brat summer, okay? It might be a few summers late, right? She might be like 3 summers late to Brat summer, but if she manages to do something meaningful there, I will accept her as Brat, okay? That's where I'm at. Get them. Don't let them be price gouging people, especially on food. That's wild. The proposal is very unfortunate, he said. It could cause an enormous amount of damage to the economy, and it reveals the desire for the government to take over the economy that I think really does suggest that Harris agrees that the era of believing that it's good for free enterprise is good for America, that era is over. In the weeks leading up to this announcement, at least 2 outside advisors privately suggested to the Harris campaign that she signal a move to the center by backing income tax cuts for middle-class households.
What the heck?
Brat gatekeeping stream.
One's in chat if you are gatekeeping Brat from Kamala until she does something truly bratty to CEOs. I am not letting her be called Brat or get away with all that shit until she does something truly bratty to the CEOs. And then I'll be like, yes, okay, fine, you're welcome in on Brat Summer. But until then, I am gatekeeping. Kamala, get out there. Kamala, get out there and be such a brat to the CEOs. We will back you so hard. Really stand up for the working class. I want to see it. I am so ready to see it. Go out there with walls and get it. Make sure they're not price gouging. I would love that. Make sure people can afford their medications. I would love that. Get housing that people can actually get into and make sure that people can be buying houses. I would love to see that. That would be some real brat behavior. 100%. One CEO swirly at minimum. Oh no, wait, I think I need to bring this rhetoric back. That's not what I mean. Wait. Bratty breakup at the too big to fail corpos. Yes, let's go. I don't want her to be a brat. Why are landlords the dom here? Do you understand BDSM? It's about power play. One's in chat, if your landlord has a bit of power over you. If your landlord has been calling the shots. If you recognize that CEOs are in power. It might not be consensual, right? That's the differentiation here between BDSM in what's happening here. We're getting non-consensually fucked really fucking hard. Look at it through power dynamics, and I think you can follow what I'm saying. And if you understand power dynamics are CEOs are fucking us and clearly are in the position of power and we need someone to stand up to them, then you get the brat rhetoric. China has had to create 68 million empty housing units by 2022 over 10 years to keep current housing market adorable. I love it when the current housing market is adorable. No moss, we're keeping that. I love it when that really goes in with Brat Summer. I'm gonna be honest with you. I also want the housing market to stay adorable. Does America have that power? I want to say yeah. Well, first off, my understanding is we have considerably less people than China does. I am so down for us to be investing in housing and making sure that we build housing. And then I feel like that can lead to really, really solid jobs too. Like, make sure those workers are unionized. Make sure those workers have paid time off. Make sure that they have maternal and paternal leave. Make sure that all parents involved have the same amount of time off. That's huge. You want those parents to bond with those kids? That's how you do it. That's how you do it, babes. Let's go. Also, make sure people just have a good work-life balance in general. I want to make sure those people have plenty of paid time off. I am like extremely vacation pilled. I feel like if everyone can't afford to enjoy a little bit of vacation or staycation, your country's not doing well. That's my bar. It's a very high bar, but that's my bar. I want to be beyond the like, we're just struggling to get people houses. We've got a long way to go, chat, but that's my vision. I'm vacation pilled. Everyone deserves a vacay. I want adorable housing. Don't we all, though? Unionize. More like ooh-unize. Ooh-unize. You say it. I don't know how to say it. Okay, we're back at it. Harris's policy push was not without its detractors, even within her own party. Policy experts in the Democratic Party lamented her recent endorsement of Trump's plan to eliminate taxes on tips. Ooh, how do you feel about that, chat? I'm not a big fan of the tipping culture, so I don't want people to be further incentivized on that. That just feels like employers passing on costs to consumers even harder. One's in chat if you live in a country that requires tips. Two's in chat if you do not. In the US, you kind of have to right now. Wouldn't you want them to move towards getting rid of tip economy though? Two, my boss actually pays me. Hell yeah, Swordfush, I love that. One, tips need to go. Proper wages better. Not required, but expected. Everyone should be paid minimum wage. That 250 shit is a violently crazy loophole. Strong agree. I think like not expected tips that are just like, I really think you did a great job and I think you need, like, I think you deserve even more on top of your paycheck. I feel like that's totally fine. But when it's expected because you know the person is getting paid sub minimum wage, that is like awful. That needs to be done away with. Policy experts in the Democratic Party lamented her recent endorsement of Trump's plan to eliminate taxes on tips, as well as her promises not to raise taxes on Americans earning under $400,000 per year, positions they see as incompatible with Democrats' ambitions to approve major new expansions of the nation's safety net. I feel like they should be cutting taxes there. Business leaders who had hoped for a warmer relationship under Harris also balked at being blamed for higher prices in her push against corporate price gouging. See, I'm telling you, she has potential to be a little bratty. There's potential there. And yet, despite these drawbacks, Democrats have become increasingly convinced that embracing populist economics is key to beating Trump, the top priority for the party through November. Concerns about the economy and inflation have ranked as among voters' top issues in the 2024 presidential election. And polling has consistently showed that attacking corporate price gouging is popular. Oh yeah, absolutely. I hope that they're hearing Bernie out. I know Bernie was saying like, hey, you need to come out and you need to be bold. You need to be talking to the working class. You need to be pushing policies that help the working class if you want to beat Trump. And so fucking strongly I agree. That's so true. And so I'm glad to see them actually rolling out policies and talking about it. That is very heartening to see. I'm not sure they're exactly what we want, but it does seem like a good stop. Yeah, I strongly agree, Gangthor. And that's always the problem on these things, right? They're going to tout these policies. They're going to get people excited. And I want to be excited. But I'm skeptical. We talked about it a little bit earlier, this like conversation around eliminating medical debt. Can you really do these things? I don't know. They gotta fight for it. They gotta really fight for it. Yeah, I mean, he was promising getting that student loan debt taken care of, and it did not work. Didn't he forgive some federal loans? I believe he forgave some. Let's look into it really quick. 3 days ago, Biden asked Supreme Court to lift a block on student loan repayment plan. Ooh, Kamala's been talking about this. I want to look at it, but let's look at what Business Insider is saying. Student loan borrowers can expect more debt relief before Biden's term is up. A top White House official says. Business Insider been too focused on business and not focused enough on whatever the fuck that was. Student loan forgiveness is among President Joe Biden's key priorities as he finishes out his term, a White House official said. Although Vice President Kamala Harris is accepting her nomination as Democratic presidential candidate this week, White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients told Axios that Biden will not let up on his work until he's officially out of office. You should expect more on student debt relief, Zients told Axios. Over the past couple years, millions of federal student loan borrowers have faced both progress and setbacks. The Supreme Court blocked Biden's first attempt at broad student loan forgiveness last summer, and the Education Department is now in the final stages of its second attempt at broader relief. Okay, so I followed the first attempt, and it seems like, okay, well, we're shit out of luck. At the same time, legal challenges have plagued Biden's efforts to launch a more affordable income-driven repayment plan, leaving millions of borrowers in limbo. So that's what I had seen, is like trying to make the income more easy to pay back, which I was like, this is not what was promised. And that's really frustrating as the legal process plays out. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona has vowed to continue the department's efforts to help borrowers, saying in a recent statement that the Biden-Harris administration remains committed to delivering as much relief as possible for as many borrowers as possible. Here's what borrowers are on track for as the year closes out. What's next for student debt relief? Over the past year, the Education Department has been implementing one-time account adjustments for borrowers on income-driven repayment plans and public service loan forgiveness. The adjustments are intended to bring borrowers' payment counts on those programs up to date, allowing many of them to reach the forgiveness threshold. This just sounds like something they should have already been doing. Over the summer, President Joe Biden's Education Department announced it would be carrying out a account adjustments to evaluate which borrowers have made the qualifying amount of payments on income-driven repayment plans and public service loan forgiveness, but have yet to receive relief. The department said it will evaluate accounts every other month to determine which borrowers qualify for debt relief. And according to updated federal student aid guidance, the department expects all adjustments to be completed by July 1st. Yeah, that's not what we're looking for. I got it. You can't always hit your promises, but maybe this is just me being frustrated with this cycle of people promising to do things and then being like, well, we can't really get it done, but I'm glad I got your votes anyway. I'm glad I hyped you up for it. And that's what you voted for me on. It's very frustrating. And I don't know that there's a way to solve that issue. At least he tried to do it. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it sounds like he's trying to take a second round. And it's going to take even longer.
though?
Why Biden's new plan to cancel student debt is going to take a lot longer than his first proposal. See, this is just not looking good. President Joe Biden isn't letting Friday's Supreme Court decision stop him from trying to get student debt relief to millions of borrowers, but it could take some time. On Friday, the High Court struck down Biden's first plan to cancel up to $20,000 in student debt for federal borrowers using the HEROES Act of 2003. The act allows the Education Secretary to waive or modify student loan balances in connection with a national emergency, like COVID-19. But the Supreme Court majority ruled Biden's usage of the act was an overreach of authority and cannot be implemented. Okay, so this is going to make it, I do think the Supreme Court, if they're fucking them over, then I know some people are going to blame the Dems for that. I don't think I agree. And I guess that's around like Obama trying to implement people and the Republicans refusing. I don't know what more you could have done there though. And that might just be my lack of like knowledge on the topic, but I don't know what more he could have done. It was fucked. But I think we gotta, I put that on the Republicans. However, just hours after the Supreme Court handed down that decision, Biden and Education Secretary Miguel Cardona announced they'd be trying again using the Higher Education Act of 1965. That will allow Secretary Cardona, who is with me today, to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances, Biden said during Friday remarks. This new path is legally sound. It's going to take longer, but in my view, it's the best path that remains to providing for as many borrowers as possible with debt relief. The reason this process will take longer is because the Higher Education Act must go through the negotiated rulemaking process, in which could take months at minimum to hold public hearings on the law and solicit public comments. It's going to be months, he added, and so we will give you more updates as we hit each milestone in that process. Ramamurthy noted that the first public hearing on the Higher Education Act will be in July, and the administration does not yet know when the borrowers can expect a significant update. The HEROES Act, in contrast, exempted the administration from going through public comment and the negotiated rulemaking process, which is why Biden chose to go that route initially to try to get relief to borrowers more quickly. See, actually, I think this is good. I think my opinion shifted a bit. Even as borrowers are continuing to wait for broad student debt relief, it won't happen before payments resume in October. To ease the transition to repayment, Biden on Friday also announced a 12-month on-ramp period from October 1st to September 30th, 2024, to ensure that borrowers who miss monthly payments do not get reported to credit agencies. Still, interest will accrue during this time, so Cardona recommended borrowers begin making payments again if they're financially able to. While Republican lawmakers lauded the Supreme Court decision, Democratic lawmakers celebrated Biden's effort to try again under the Higher Education Act. Republicans really do just hate this country. I'm convinced of it. Like, why would you want your young people to be saddled with clearly ridiculous amounts of debt? What the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you be okay with people being in lifelong amounts of debt that they signed on to when they were young enough to probably not understand what that was? I know I wasn't understanding it when I signed on. I didn't want to sign on, but then I was like, wow, I'm literally not going to be able to go to college, and I need to. That's what we've been set up to do. So really fucking unhinged. If the Dems do nothing about this in the next year, then I blame the Dems. Until then, this is 100% on the GOP and their allies. Yeah, I'm there with you on that. I think I gotta walk that back. I think I was wrong there, chat. I do want to see what Kamala said on this because this was very recent. What Kamala Harris has said about forgiving student and medical. President Joe Biden's administration has centered around many issues, with student loan forgiveness at the top of the list. During his presidency, Biden erased $170 billion in student debt for roughly 5 million Americans. When did this happen? What did this look like? Because all I kept hearing was no student debt relief, no student debt relief. So I finally got it fucking paid off. I managed to pay mine off, which is wild. I'm very happy with that. But I just kept hearing, nope, nope. So thank you, Kiart. Yeah, that's a huge deal. That's one of the reasons I'm going back to school. I'm very, very excited because I did not want to go back to school if I was going to be sitting there in debt. I didn't want to accrue more debt, you know? Like, fuck. As the top Democratic contender, Vice President Kamala Harris is likely to continue Biden's student loan forgiveness plans. And she has also come out with a proposal that would see medical debt erased for many Americans. Harris has said she would like to use federal funds to clear medical debt from Americans that they face from their health providers. During her vice presidency, Harris worked with North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper to get rid of medical debt for 2 million North Carolinians. She also sought to end medical bills from being included on consumer credit reports alongside the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Okay, so there's actually some work that's already been done by this. I want to see, how much did you get removed? Was it all of their medical debt for 2 million North Carolinians? President Biden and Vice President Harris believe that getting sick or taking care of loved ones should not mean financial hardship for American families, the White House said in a statement in June. The burden of medical debt and its impact on credit reports inflicts serious financial repercussions on American families, restricting access to credit, increasing risk of bankruptcy, creating barriers to housing and healthcare access, and negatively impacting health outcomes. This debt is often placed on American families despite evidence of medical bills frequently being invalid, unsubstantiated, and inaccurate. Are they saying that these people are fucking putting stuff on our bills that shouldn't even be there? Fabricating shit? Do you think an aspirin costs $10 to $20 each pill? No. Are they charging that? The fuck? That's wild. Why wouldn't you go after that? Hopefully they are. Harris also said she would be in favor of preventing medical debt in the first place by protecting patients from debt collectors through charity care and restrictions on healthcare providers and third-party debt collectors. Biden definitely did student debt relief. I remember him first doing it with lenders, borrowers that he saw fraud, deceit with. Ooh, okay. So they did say that he got like $170 billion? That's a lot. So I might just be straight up wrong about that, which is good. Happy to be wrong about that. I love it when I'm wrong and that's a good thing. A little hopium? I'm like, is this real though? I'm not sure. I could use a little hopium. Voters would likely see a similar initiative from Harris to Biden's student loan forgiveness programs. We see a future where no teacher has to struggle with the burden of student loan debt, Harris said at a speech in Wisconsin last month. So far, Harris has been a strong proponent of Biden's SAVE plan, which operates as an income-driven repayment program to reduce payments or even enforce $0 monthly fees. And we did get price-adjusted prescription drug costs, specifically on insulin, no? That is just a win. That's a win. A win is a win, and we're taking that win. That's a win. And they want to expand that. So that's looking good. That always ask for an itemized medical bill. Good advice. One's in chat, if you're about to be always asking for an itemized medical bill from here on out. Chat, you better fucking do it. You better do it if you're getting a medical bill. What's a medical bill? Shut the fuck up. What are you, European? Shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear it. You shut up. We're having an American conversation right now. Shut the fuck up. Wow. These people, these international people, not in the States, showing up when I am trying to have my American friendos backs and being like, what is a medical bill? Wow. 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 Breaking my heart. You're killing me. Point 9. I do not intend to get into a situation that would require a bill from medics. Ah, yes. The very American way of dealing with medical bills. I simply will not go to the hospital. I too always plan to never get sick and never break any bones and never need any medical care. That is how I've been trying to live my life. I am 100% with you, Switch victim. Vice President Harris faces a dilemma. On one hand, America's on a fiscally unstable path, and if we're going to embark on some of the more ambitious programs she'd like to pursue, we need more revenue, said Daniel Hemmel, a tax policy expert at the New York University School of Law. On the other hand, democracy is in peril, and that crisis feels and is more imminent than the fiscal crisis. And I think she's made the correct calculus that sacrificing on fiscal policy for a few 100,000 middle-class voters in battleground states is worth it. Wow, I hate this guy. Sacrificing by bailing the actual people out? Whoa. Whoa. Sacrificing by being against price gouging? Whoa. Brother. Wow. That is the worst. On housing, Harris did less to break with the Biden administration, but still opted for a more active set of federal proposals than those thus far endorsed by the White House. Harris endorsed a slew of measures to expand housing supply, including an expansion of tax credits to incentivize housing construction, but also a new $25,000 in federal down payment assistance to more than 1 million first-time home buyers. Biden had previously proposed a more limited measure only for first-generation home buyers. Critics say this plan would probably bid up housing prices, which have already soared since the pandemic. So I really like the idea of the first, making sure that you have assistance for first generation home buyers. The hope being that is helping people who have systemically been left out of this process. I think that's really solid. I'm really happy to see. I feel like this covers the incoming generation a lot better though, but I think that's pretty cool actually. Harris also pledged to work with states to cancel medical debt for millions of Americans, building on one of her signature policy issues as vice president. That effort could involve using federal funds to buy and forgive outstanding medical debt from health providers. Harris's office also recently worked with the state of North Carolina on a first-of-its-kind initiative to forgive the medical debt of 2 million state residents by creating financial incentives for hospitals to relieve medical debt or prevent it from accumulating in the first place. So paying the hospital, what do you mean financial incentives? Because it sounds like they're trying to be like, we're bailing out the hospitals, or we're incentivizing the hospitals to bail out the people. Probably subsidies. The US can get more revenue if they want. There are literally billion-dollar companies that pay no tax. Yeah, but this is a way I think they're like, oh, well, they're trying to go the centrist approach, where they're not stepping on the toes of billion-dollar companies. And that is such bullshit. That's just bullshit. If the US ends all tax breaks and tax holidays for the richest, there would be lots of tax income. And yet we're not even talking about progressive taxation yet. Yeah, that initiative received federal approval last month, and all 99 eligible hospitals in North Carolina have since committed to participate, a potential model for other states. Oh wait, so this seems like it's working. They tried this and it works. That brings me hope. Oh, I just read your shirt. That's so nice. Thank you. I went to a Glass Animals concert and it was like my first concert, kind of, not technically, but pretty much. And I got band merch. This shirt. That's what I got. And I'm so happy about it. I love Glass Animals. It's the name of their most recent album. And I love that album. So I'm like, ooh. So thank you. I love it.